Hi everybody. Today I am answering the question, what to do when your elderly parents continually fire or run off the caregivers that you hire. We'll talk about why elderly parents don't want caregivers in their home, why they want you to be the caregiver, and how you can work through this sticky wicket of a conundrum. I'm Pamela D. Wilson. My website's PamelaDWilson.com. On there, a lot of hope, help, and support for caregivers and aging adults. Please click the share button on this video, press the follow button on this video to share it with other people, other caregivers you know who are looking for hope, help, and support. So, oh my gosh, reasons elderly parents don't want caregivers. Well, the first is the obvious. They want you to provide all the care. Now, this also applies to spouses too, right? They want a husband, a wife, children to be the only ones doing everything for them. But what they don't realize is, over the long run, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and continually needing more help and making more demands, this is not practical for your life. Number two, they don't want strangers in their home, right? Now this one is truly a valid concern. You have to be very careful when you hire in-home caregivers, whether they're through an agency or whether you hire them privately. I can tell you that agencies don't always do good background checks. You may end up with people who have criminal histories in your parents' house. Many times, non-medical care agencies don't provide a lot of supervision or training. So if you're going to hire somebody through an agency, there's actually a post on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, that talks about how to supervise and hire in-home caregivers. You want to look at that. But you want to have a good relationship with the owner of the company or with somebody in the company so that you can continually provide feedback and make sure that you get the right caregiver. Now, if there's an agency that has CNAs, which are certified nursing assistants, those have requirements for continuing education and training. So they're a little more experienced than just somebody who is a regular caregiver who does homemaking skills and house cleaning skills and things like that. And if you hire independently, then really all of this is on you. Eventually it will save you time, but initially to hire and supervise and make sure this person's doing what they need to be doing, it's going to be a bit of work. So your parents may not want somebody who is untrained, who they have to tell everything about what they're supposed to do that day. Caregivers who come in and are supposed to be able to cook and they can't even make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So this hiring caregiving thing really is fraught with a lot of issues. Next, elderly parents don't want to give up control over their life and their choices. Now, this is a big one for reasons that you might not even imagine. So, let's say your elderly parents have lived independently all their life and now they need some help. You want to let them do the things that they can still do safely because this requires effort, right? It requires mental effort and physical effort, as long as they're safe, right? Because the more that you take away from them, that damages their ego. It damages their self-esteem. It damages their confidence. The more you take away from them, the less they will do for themselves. So in a sense, you as a caregiver think you're doing a really good thing, but you're making them more dependent, which is not what you want. You really want your parents to be as independent as possible. So if you hire caregivers, you have to make sure that they're aware of this and they kind of facilitate your parents doing things for themselves so that they don't totally take over. And I'll give an example of this. So let's say that your parent has a hip fracture, right? Or you injure yourself. You have some kind of injury or illness or whatever. Things like that can really play tricks with our minds, right? So an elderly parent who breaks a hip may then be afraid to walk, right? Because they have some hip pain, but they're afraid that they're going to fall again. They may be afraid to go up and down steps, may be afraid to get in the car and drive, may be afraid to go out and walk in the grocery store. It depends on where they fell, right? Take a bath, take a shower. So these injuries play tricks on our minds, and our mind is like, oh, no, I shouldn't do that. I'm going to fall. That's dangerous. So what really happens is, because of these injuries or health issues, people limit their activities, and their world that used to be this big gets really small, and they become more dependent on things and more fearful, which is really a bad thing. So how do you make this transition to having your parents accept caregivers and not be verbally abusive and not send them home and not fire them, okay? So first of all, you have to get their buy-in, and that can be hard in the first place, right? But if you can involve them in choosing the caregiver, right, somebody that they like, find an agency that will let your parents and you interview these caregivers to make sure they're a right fit. So they have to be a right fit from their skill level, their personality, their background, and you have to manage the tasks. So your parents shouldn't have to be the one that supervises this person that comes in. That's another reason they send them away and they get upset, right? They have this caregiver who's coming, and the caregiver's like, well, what do you want me to do today? No, the caregiver needs to know what they need to do. They need to be experienced enough to take initiative. Not all in-home caregivers are trained to do this. So if you need to come up with a list of 20 things and say, when you go to my parents' house, this is what you do, then you need to do that, okay? Know that you're going to have to manage their schedule too. All the tasks, make sure that everything's being done. Have them leave notes for you in a notebook so that you know. You also want to make an agreement with your parent that they will try this out for 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, because you may have to go through several caregivers to find a good match. Your parent needs to get to know this person, to like this person. And here's the other difficulty, right? Caregiver turnover is a reality at caregiving agencies. You may find the perfect caregiver who then leaves in 6 months to go get a better paying job or goes to nursing school or something like that. So you have to know and be aware of the ups and downs of hiring in-home caregivers. They may not be trained. They may not be well supervised. Background checks could be questionable. You can always ask for copies of those, by the way. And you might have a lot of turnover. So you need to have a system and a process to have backups, which may be why you want to look at having 2 agencies and 2 different caregivers. Initially, it may be a little harder on your parent, but in the long run, having a backup that your parent likes can save you a lot of time and effort. You also have to have honest conversations. And that sounds like, well, Mom or Dad, I know I've been doing all this for you, but my work life is hectic. You know, I have kids. I have a husband. It's not that I don't want to help you. I love you, but I can't do all this anymore. And so it's time that we look at outside caregivers. I know that you may not want to do this. It may be scary, but I'm going to do my best to manage the situation so that it works out. Will you at least agree to try it for 4 to 6 to 8 weeks? If your parent agrees, great, move forward. If your parent says, no, I'm not going to do it, then what you say is, okay, I understand that you don't want to do this, but I can't give you this time anymore. So your choice is a paid caregiver, or you have to do all this yourself. Now, let's talk about the risks of doing this yourself. You could fall. You could end up in the hospital. You could end up in a nursing home. Maybe you can't come back and live here at home, which I know is what you really want. Maybe you forget to take your medications. You end up in the hospital emergency room. I can't show up at the doctor's office. I can't show up at the hospital. You're not going to have anybody to take care of you. So looking at the long term, having somebody come in now, even if you don't need a lot of help, because that's what your parents are going to say, I don't need that much help right now. I'm okay. You're thinking about the long term. Even if you don't need that much help right now, it's better to have a backup and somebody that we have a connection with, so that if something unexpected happens, which it always does, then we have a caregiver and a care agency in place who can help. I love you, but I can't do this myself. It's hurting my health, my work life, and my family. And I love you. So please consider this for me, even if you don't want to consider it for yourself. Then you've got to hold your ground and not show up if they refuse. Parents who fire caregivers, think about this, are like small children throwing a tantrum because they want control, right? They want you to give in. Your elderly parents who fire their caregivers, who are verbally abusive, who send them away, they're trying to retain the last shreds of control. And if you were their age, or when you are their age, you will understand how this feels. It's scary, it's frightening, and I'm sure your parents don't want to tell you that. Okay, so you've got to be the one who says, hey, I know you don't like this. I know it must be uncomfortable. I probably wouldn't want to do it if I were you either. But this is why we should do it. I'm Pamela D. Wilson, a caregiving expert. There's a lot of information here on YouTube, hundreds of videos. Please follow, please like the channel. Also go to my website, PamelaDWilson.com, where there is a full 8-module course on how to take care of aging parents. I will put a link below this video. Have a fabulous day today. I'll see you all again soon in another video.